The air in the Copa room was thick with a familiar alchemy on that cold February night in 1962, a heady mix of cigarette smoke, expensive perfume, and the palpable buzz of seeing a legend at his peak. Every chaise lounge was occupied, every cocktail glass held a little tighter in anticipation. On stage, bathed in a halo of white light, was the city's reigning king of cool. His voice, a smooth, bourbon-soaked instrument, wrapped around the love song he was famous for, holding the audience in a state of collective reverie. He was more than a performer here. He was an institution, the very embodiment of Las Vegas glamour. The show was a well-oiled machine of charm and talent, proceeding with flawless, effortless grace. And then, the door to the back of the room swung open. A different kind of chill entered the air. A man in an impeccably tailored, dark suit led a procession of 8 others through the crowded space. They moved not with the shuffling deference of latecomers, but with the deliberate, unsettling certainty of men who own the ground they walked on. The maître d', a man who had calmly navigated the egos of movie stars and millionaires, turned ashen and scurried over, only to be silenced by a barely perceptible shake of the head. Without ceremony, the group displaced a table of patrons near the stage. The displaced guests, recognizing the new arrivals, vanished without protest. This was Sam Giancana, the Chicago outfit's formidable boss, and his presence was not a request, it was a seismic event. On stage, the singer's eyes, which had been serenely half-closed, flickered open for a fraction of a second, registering the intrusion. At a corner table, his closest friend and fellow Rat Pack icon, a man known for his own formidable connections, stiffened, the smile freezing on his face. Giancana did not take a seat so much as occupy a territory. He leaned back, his expression unreadable, a sphinx in a silk tie watching. The performance continued, but the chemistry had changed. The carefree magic was gone, replaced by a taut, wire-like tension. Every person in that room now understood they were no longer just at a show. They were witnesses to a silent, high-stakes negotiation of power. The final, lingering note of the song hung in the air, met with a burst of applause that sounded more nervous than celebratory. As the clapping began to subside, Giancana rose. He didn't stand quickly. It was a slow, deliberate uncoiling. The room fell silent, not gradually, but as if a switch had been flipped. "Hey, crooner," Giancana's voice was flat, cutting through the quiet like a cleaver. All heads swiveled. The singer's famous smile, a trademark of his relaxed persona, remained fixed, but it no longer reached his eyes, which had turned the color of chilled steel. "Yeah, Sam," he responded, the microphone catching the careful neutrality in his tone. "That was garbage," Giancana announced, his voice projecting to the very back walls. "A trained seal could carry a tune better. What happened to you? You used to have it." He let the cruel assessment hang, ensuring every socialite, every studio executive, every rival performer absorbed it. This was not a critique, it was a demolition. He then gestured vaguely toward the singer's famous friend. "Frankie, maybe you should get up there and show him how a real pro does it." The friend Frank began to stand, a mediator's gesture, but Giancana sliced the air with his hand. "Sit down, I'm talking to your pal here." He turned his gaze back to the stage, a predator examining cornered prey. "Your problem is you think you're special. You think that voice and those suits make you somebody. They don't. You're just help, entertaining help." The humiliation was surgical, precise, and devastatingly public. This was Giancana establishing a brutal pecking order for all to see. In his world, talent was a commodity, and celebrities were assets to be managed or dismantled. The singer stood motionless, the classic mask of his celebrity, the easy grin, the twinkling eyes now a lifeless facade. Inside, a lifetime of compromises, of quiet nods and swallowed protests in the name of career preservation, flashed before him. He could walk off. He could make a joke and defuse the situation. He could apologize. Every option meant surrendering a piece of his soul to a man who traded in broken spirits. He chose none of them. Instead, he moved. With a slow, deliberate pace, he walked to the very lip of the stage, stopping directly above Giancana's table. The spotlight followed, isolating the two men in a dramatic cone of light. "You're right, Sam, I do think I'm special," he said, his voice not rising in anger but gaining a new resonant clarity. It was a tone no one in that room had ever heard from him, devoid of performance, utterly sincere and dangerously calm. "But not for the reasons you think. I'm up here because people choose to listen. I built this. You, he paused, letting the silence stretch. You're down there because you inherited a legacy of fear. Your power doesn't come from creating something. It comes from threatening to destroy what others have built. A collective, almost imperceptible gasp rippled through the Copa room. This wasn't defiance. It was an act of unimaginable rebellion. Gincana's men shifted, their hands moving instinctively toward jacket linings, but their boss raised a single finger. He was intrigued now, a cat allowing the mouse one last, foolish speech. You interrupt my home, the singer continued, his gaze sweeping the audience before locking back on Gincana. You insult my guests and my craft, and you expect me to thank you for the criticism, to beg for your approval? He shook his head, a sad, final gesture. That ends tonight. I've played by the shadow rules of this town for a decade. I've kept my head down. I've been a good, quiet boy, but I am done being afraid of you. Frank was on his feet now, panic etched on his face. The singer looked at his friend, a look of profound apology and unshakable resolve, before turning back to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice firm, the management has allowed a climate where this is acceptable. I cannot and will not perform in it. Then he did the unthinkable. He bent down, gently placed the microphone on the polished stage floor, and turned his back on the most powerful mobster in America. The asterisk thud of the microphone meeting the wood was the only sound in the universe. He didn't run, he didn't hurry. He simply walked off the stage, through the curtains, and out of the life he had known. Backstage, the world dissolved into chaos. Frank caught up to him in the dim, concrete corridor. Are you insane? Do you have a death wish? He will asterisk end you. He'll end all asterisk of us. The singer, his hands beginning to tremble as the adrenaline ebbed, leaned against a cold wall. I know exactly what I did, pal. I just signed my own cancellation notice. Maybe more. But Frank, I just couldn't kneel, not one more time. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of a personal revolution. I'd rather face whatever comes next standing on my own 2 feet. The fallout was swift and merciless. Before dawn, a quiet edict went out across the strip. The singer was asterisk persona non grata asterisk. His lucrative residency was indefinitely suspended. Calls from other venues went unreturned. The blacklist was absolute and enforced not by paper, but by whispered fear. His career in Vegas, the engine of his fame and fortune, was over. Many in Hollywood wrote him off, whispering that his pride had cost him everything. They waited for the other, more violent shoe to drop. But then an unexpected thing happened. The story broke nationally, and the headlines were Star has meltdown. They were entertainment icon defies mob intimidation. The public, weary of tales of underworld corruption, rallied behind him. He was transformed overnight from a crooner into a symbol of courage. This public adoration became a fragile shield. And then, a phone call came that would change the trajectory of the entire struggle. 3 days later, sitting in the unsettling quiet of his Beverly Hills home, he took a call from Robert F. Kennedy, the Attorney General of the United States. Kennedy, in the midst of a historic crusade against organized crime, saw a pivotal opportunity. Mr. Martin, Kennedy's Boston-accented voice crackled down the line. What you did took a kind of courage this country desperately needs to see. You're not alone anymore. My department is prepared to offer you protection. More than that, we want you to help us. Your stand can be the catalyst that finally breaks their hold on an entire industry. Thus began an unlikely alliance. The singer was not a traditional whistleblower. He offered no names, no specific criminal intelligence. Instead, he did something perhaps more powerful. He testified before congressional committees about the climate of fear. He spoke eloquently and emotionally about the invisible pressure, the unspoken rules, the constant awareness that your success was permitted, not earned. His celebrity gave the issue a face, and his quiet dignity lent it immense moral weight. His testimony opened the floodgates. Emboldened, other performers began to share their stories of forced, unpaid performances at private parties, of management fees siphoned off their earnings, of subtle and not-so-subtle threats against themselves and their families. A chorus of voices rose, painting an undeniable picture of systemic control. The U.S. government, armed with this public mandate, pushed through the landmark Gaming Control Act, establishing rigorous federal oversight of Nevada's casinos. It was the first major crack in the fortress. The most lasting change, however, was born in the negotiation rooms of the entertainment unions. Leveraging the public outcry and the singer's testimony, unions like the Screen Actors Guild secured groundbreaking new protections for Las Vegas performers. Contracts now included ironclad clauses guaranteeing artistic autonomy, establishing security protocols, and creating formal grievance procedures free from coercion. The era when a mob boss could walk into a show and dismantle a star for sport was officially, legally over. Sam Giancana never forgave the betrayal. Until his violent death in 1975, he considered the singer a marked man, though the shield of public sentiment and federal interest made direct retaliation increasingly fraught. He lived to see his influence wane, his empire slowly eroded by the very forces the singer's stand had helped to unleash. The revolution was not overnight, but it was irreversible. Years later, at a party in Malibu, a young, counterculture comedian known for his own brand of fearless commentary approached the now legendary figure. "Sir," he asked, "do you ever look back and regret that night? The risk was astronomical." The old star took a slow sip of his drink, his eyes looking back across the decades. "Son," he said, "I only regret the times I was silent, the times I saw something wrong and let it slide for the sake of an easy life. That night I was terrified, but I was also, for the first time, truly free. You see, when you accept the worst they can do, their power over you vanishes. They can't threaten a man who's already made peace with losing everything." The legacy of that February night stretched far beyond one career or one confrontation. It proved that cultural power, the power of a star's influence and the public's affection, could, in a definitive moment, confront raw criminal power. It ignited a chain reaction that helped sanitize Las Vegas, empowered entertainers as never before, and inspired individuals in other industries to question their own silent compromises. The mob's glamorous, corrupt kingdom was not defeated by police raids alone, but also by a single, principled act of walking away. The singer passed away peacefully in 1995, a beloved icon. His obituaries celebrated his films, his music, and his unparalleled cool. But for those who knew the deeper history, his greatest performance was not on a soundstage or in a recording booth. It was on the edge of a Copa Room stage, when he traded security for sovereignty, and in doing so, helped an industry find its spine. What forgotten act of defiance by a silver screen legend secretly protected a future president? The answer is more shocking than fiction. Make sure you're subscribed to Hollywood Untold Files and hit that like button. We're delving into the secret histories where courage altered destiny. Stay tuned for our next revelation.